So basically the theme for Aries moons, they're all going to be very passionate. They're going to have a need for independence. I'm going to tell you guys exactly what it means to have an Aries moon in the first and the second, etc. Aries moons are very passionate. They're ruled by fire. Your reaction time to your emotions is going to be much quicker. Their shadow side, on the other hand, they can have anger issues. And also there's a strong emotional defensiveness when it comes to Aries moons, just because they are a fighter. So the first house is all about your identity, but when it comes to being placed in your moon sign, it's going to be your emotional identity. So an Aries moon in the first house is going to have a very strong sense of self. Their presence is going to be very known, especially to the outer world. People are going to know if you're like really pissed off. People with this placement are especially emotionally reactive to others because it's in that first house, which again is identity. People will feel an Aries moon's emotions very quickly when it comes to having that first house placement. Second house is like financial security in general, but especially when it comes to finances. You're only going to feel secure or most secure when you have control over your resources. On the other hand, this could result in emotional spending because of the impulsivity of an Aries. Basically, you gain emotional security through financial security. Moving on to a third house. This one is like really obvious just because third house is all about communication. So when it comes to an Aries moon, they're going to have no emotional filter. They're also going to be a very passionate communicator. This can spark arguments very quickly with others. They just have a quicker mind when it comes to emotions. If you've triggered an Aries moon in the third house, you guys will argue. There's no doubt about that, just because they are so passionate, and the third house does rule communication. So it's like, yeah, you're not getting out of that. Okay, so Aries moons in the fourth house. Fourth house is like family, home life, the structure of the home, and how that affects the child at an earlier age. Most of them will have a very intense upbringing. So there's a lot of strong emotions in the home, especially when it comes to the upbringing of an Aries moon in the fourth house. If you do have this placement, you'll notice that as you grow older, you'll need a lot of independence from your family. You could notice that when you were younger too, you wanted to have independence from your family. Having this placement, you'll have to work through a lot of deep emotional healing. I love the fifth house because that rules creativity and ultimately your passion and your spark. So when that's correlated to emotions, there's going to be a lot of creative energy. And it's also fun because when it's an Aries especially, you'll get more impulses to do like creative hobbies. These people are very, very magnetic, and also they just attract a lot of love, but they do fall really quick for people. They can also be kind of competitive when it comes to love, just because Aries, again, it's a fighter. It's a fighter, but also fire energy. So Aries is a sign that's trying to find its place. It's, again, when I talk about Aries, even when we correlate it to tarot, they're almost like that page energy, because they have a lot of ideas and maybe they'll go after things, but they are quite impulsive and childlike about it. Moving on to the sixth house, that correlates to movement, but also work and health. So when you have an Aries moon in the sixth house, you need a very stimulating job. You can't be stuck in routine. Actually, being stuck in routine as an Aries moon in the sixth house, you'll find yourself to be very irritable. Like, that's just not something that you guys can do. I think like kind of entrepreneurial, just because they work best independently. They also are kind of prone to emotional burnout too, just due to overworking themselves. Moving on to the seventh house, this is all about relationships, all about romance. This is my placement, so I get kind of giddy talking about it. You'll attract a lot of relationships, but there could be also a lot of arguments, just because Someone that has that placement, relationships really get their emotions moving, especially when it comes to romantic relationships. They're definitely like a fighter type. They fight for love. They fight for, you'll find yourself fighting really hard for people, and attract really strong partners too. Someone with an Aries moon in the 7th house is going to want a very masculine person. It's interesting, even though it's a fire sign, they actually want more of an equal give or take when it comes to relationships. Like, you have to match the energy of an Aries moon. Okay, moving on to 8th house. So this placement is very, very, I would say, just deep. Just due to the 8th house, you know, ruling death, karma, transitions in life. This placement, because they have that fire, they're going to be very like sexually magnetic, but also very jealous of people at times. Most of their relationships are going to be very transformative. You'll see yourself, if you have this placement, you have very strong emotional instincts. 9th house is pretty self-explanatory, I think, just because it rules traveling. When it comes to having your Aries moon in the 9th house, you're going to want to have a lot of emotional freedom. Basically, you guys thrive when it comes to travel, but especially having the control over your travel. You guys always are seeking adventure, seeking the truth behind things. These people also have really, really strong emotional beliefs. You guys could also have a heavy thirst for like knowledge, education, stuff like that. Having your moon in the 10th house is that these people are very strong leaders, and a lot of people will look up to them just because, again, I've spoken about how Aries, they are the baby, right? They're the baby of the zodiac, but they're also the most with, they also have the most courage. So you'll see people often looking up to them. When it's in the 10th house, your public image and your reputation matters so much to you. A lot of your emotional investment in your career, but also just in your public image. You guys will have a strong sense of desire to achieve things publicly, but also just winning. Like, they could be very competitive when it comes to careers or just like working up the ladder. When it comes to having your Aries moon in the 11th house, that's all about community, friendships. I wouldn't say close relationships, just because that's more of like a 7th house. Ties with people abroad, your sense of community, basically. You'll see a lot of these people, they might be activists and very passionate about certain causes, especially publicly, like in certain groups. Yeah, they're also very emotionally tied to their friends. They'll be very protective over their circle. Lastly, the 12th house. I feel like this is especially a difficult placement to have with an Aries moon because, like I said in the beginning, Aries can have just a difficulty with their emotions. In the 12th house, it's more about hidden. It would mean that you have suppressed anger. You also might isolate yourself emotionally. See this placement have a lot of internal battles that they have to work through. This placement especially will have a lot of deep healing when it comes to their emotions and regulating their self.